Being able to control up to 3 people now, we rightfully suspected that our main trio won't be the only party members during this adventure, and it had been confirmed with Noelle joining in. The only question remaining is where our path will lead next, and who our new companions will be. Despite the title of this series, I haven't really touched on Deltarune's RPG aspect, but for today I gathered a big roster of potential candidates for the Delta Warriors. First, let's make a few things clear though. I don't have enough information to determine each of their archetypes yet. Instead, I wish to discuss why I chose them, how they would work as party members, their roles in the story, and determine their classes and subclasses. I won't do this alone either, as none other than MysticSlime will join me on this discussion today.
Hey guys, it's Mystic, and I'm glad to be here for this video. I'm here today to give some input on what party members may be joining us down the line in Deltarune's upcoming chapters, and what their abilities may be. I also make Deltarune theories over on my channel, so go check it out in the description if you like that kind of stuff.
Before we jump right in, I want to rectify a mistake I made in part 1. There I said that Ralsei is a wizard from the School of Enchanting, an intelligence-based class with mind-controlling spells, but upon closer inspection, he is more a trickery domain cleric, as it explains his emphasis on sparing the enemies, knowing healing magic by default, and being able to teach it to Susie. But the biggest proof of this comes from his behavior, as he has all the knowledge but none of the experience, indicating high wisdom paired with low intelligence. Most likely our very next party member will be Toriel herself, and although I can't ignore the telltale signs of another evil root in Chapter 3, things likely won't be that simple. She is the mother after all, so not only would she notice if we're starting to act weird, but it is also possible that she won't even listen at first. On the contrary, she would expect Chris to be the one obeying her. This wouldn't manifest in the same way we saw in Chapter 1 though. Back at the start of Chapter 2 you can call her a few times before going to the library, and she says that if Berdly starts harassing Chris, she will throw in a smoke bomb so you can escape. Unlike in Undertale, we didn't have the option to flee from anyone in this game, so it would make sense that a new party member would have an ability that allows us to. Also, if she refuses to obey us, then she could use it to end an encounter instantly after a few turns, which would mean losing money and potential recruits.
If given the ability to flee from battles, it could also make for an interesting route that involves only fleeing from enemies. This could either make an interesting weird route concept where you flee from battles where people who are being attacked need help, or just a unique route that leads to some unique lines of dialogue about you just running away from every enemy.
Having all those abilities, I assume she will be a warlock, specifically a crowd-controlling archfey in the normal route, and a fiend who burns everyone in the evil route. Most of what Undyne is capable of has already been displayed in the previous game. She can blend into the shadows, summon and hurl multiple spears at a distance, and trap enemies in place. She is obviously a ranger, more precisely a gloom stalker. As a new chief of police, Undyne also takes her work very seriously, and can be the greatest ally or enemy. In Chapter 2 we not only learn that Catti knows occult magic, but also get a hint of what kind of spells she knows. All of this indicates that she will have a bigger role in the story, probably by ending up in a dark world at some point. She also seems to be afraid of Susie, although we can't really be sure why. She will most likely be a wizard of the School of Abjuration, which specifies in protection spells and dispelling other magic users. Jockington is also likely to come into play, since he and Catti are besties. He is kind and hardworking, but we don't know much about him. Honestly, I can't even determine his class yet. Catti's older sister Catty and Bratty, like most recurring characters, had their personalities carried over from Undertale, but they never got to know each other better or become friends, probably because Catti has no reason to be around the junkyard. I don't think she will have a bigger role in this game. Bratty on the other hand is much more active, as she admittedly pulled a prank on Burger Pants already. What tipped me off about her is that she is one of those cool kids that Chris wanted to hang out with in the past. Long story short, I think she will join the party as a thief character. Mettaton is kinda shy in this game, and says that he doesn't have any fans, which is pretty much the state he was in Undertale before Alphys made him a robot body. The Dark World could be a new opportunity for him to find confidence and become a known musician in the end. He is also the only one who can potentially become a bard character, and what would be more fitting for Mettaton than the College of Glamour?
Deltarune in general could also be an opportunity to see Mettaton in his ghost form without any robot body, since we never actually get to see that in Undertale. We also don't really get to see many attacks from Napstablook besides crime, so it could even be a chance to show off what ghosts can really do.
Asgore seems to be an obvious choice, right? Not only is he Chris's father, but he's also integral to the story as the former chief of police. We already had a full display of his combat abilities back in Undertale, and I firmly believe that he will be a paladin, as he can use fire magic by default, and has great control over the battlefield, which explains how he could take away our abilities to spare him or flee. Also, being referred to as the Flower King indicates that he will take the Oath of the Ancients, a paladin protecting the legacy of their ancestors, being able to ward off magical damage and using the force of nature. It isn't clear when we get to see Papyrus in this game or whether or not he will join the party. However, I don't think he needs an introduction for any fans out there. Based on what we know about him, I safely assume that he will be an Eldritch Knight, and yes, this is another mistake I made in part 1, but I will correct that in a minute. The Eldritch Knight is the kind of fighter who uses both strength and wizard spells in battle. Papyrus mostly attacks with bones, but there is also his fabled blue attack, which seems like a spell to me. What makes me firmly believe this though is that he seems like the opposite of Ralsei, high intelligence paired with low wisdom. Most of the time Papyrus acts like he's senile, sharp mind but none the wiser. Out of the two brothers, Sans is the one less likely to join us. He is lazy. You can't get him to try, unless you're being so evil that he goes full Moon Knight on you. Although if the hardest and most infamous boss of the previous game does somehow join you as a party member, that would be such an ironic twist.
It would also be an interesting possibility to have Sans as a party member that hides his real strength during battles, but will get serious if you start making some bad choices. In Undertale, we saw that he knew how to manipulate certain aspects of the game, and I think he could easily do something similar with appearing much weaker in battles than he truly is. It would also make for an awesome weird route where your own party member could suddenly turn against you.
I still firmly believe that he is a wizard who specifies in illusion spells. Aside from his bone attacks and poison, he can also blind you temporarily, and use illusory self to sidestep your attacks. It would normally take a short rest to recharge each time, which explains why this move ultimately exhausts him. Monster Kid and Snowdrake are next, and there is a reason why the fandom hates them now. Take Berdly for example. Even in Chapter 1, he wasn't just a generic bully, there was nuance to his character. These two were only doing two things so far, hating on Susie or badmouthing Chris. Sorry guys, but I don't think you have the potential to become Delta Warriors. Speaking of Berdly, he could potentially come back in a future chapter. I want to mention another YouTuber here, Chicken, who had a mini theory in his worst snow grave video, that when the roaring happens, all of the normal party members would be wiped out, but the ones who gained power on the evil route could face the Titans head on. What he forgot though is that taking the evil route means sacrificing someone who's also very powerful, that being Berdly himself. He has really strong wind magic at his disposal, and wields a holy halberd, a weapon specifically designed against knights. With his weapon having the name holy in it, and looking at his overall personality, I once again stand corrected about something I said in part 1. Having low intelligence but high charisma, and seeing himself as a force of law and justice, I see now that Berdly is not an eldritch knight, but a paladin of the Oath of Devotion. Despite being told that the vessel was discarded, the game still saved it in its files, so I'm certain it will return. This leads to the debate on how customizable our character is, because our choices could determine our class once we regain control. For example, the gift could symbolize its primary ability, with kindness being charisma, mind being intelligence, bravery being strength, ambition being dexterity, and voice being wisdom.
I personally think that these traits will come back in a similar way to the thrashing machine in chapters 1 to 2. The thrashing machine would have different attacks in both the rules card fight and the queen fight in chapter 2 based on the parts that you picked in chapter 1. I think something similar can happen with the vessel, where it will have different moves depending on what traits you picked for it at the beginning of the game.
Whether it was Gaster or someone else who made the default vessel if we skipped the first chapter, I can't give a clear answer to, but there is another matter here, as I think the twisted sword we can forge with a pure crystal and the thorn ring was meant for one specific person. It is time to talk about our connection to the Red Soul again. While replaying chapter 1, I noticed something Ralsei said. Notably, he specified 3 things the soul has in it. Chris's will, compassion, and the fate of the world. The last one of course being us, the player. This puts his private conversations in a new context, as there clearly is something we are not meant to hear. Perhaps a way to sever the connection in case of an emergency? Or is it something else? I don't really expect him to do a complete 180 at any point, but I can't deny the possibility of ulterior motives. Regardless, things will only get harder from now on. Thanks for watching, and a huge thanks to Mystic for helping me today. We already collaborated on a video over on his channel, so be sure to check that one out as well, link in the description. Honestly, I wanted to give this series a rest until the release of chapter 3, but now I have more on my mind, so I'll probably still make a few more parts for the first season of this series. Stay tuned for the next video everyone.